So, as I was saying, I welcome you on behalf of KLF in the absence
going
of.
to be a clash, so why don't you use the language?
This is here. This is here. So that's fine. And in any case, I have a teacher's voice, which for this kind of room is just it's a song and not a problem. I think I'm really proud of the initiative that Dr. Koro has taken to write the children's history of the different provinces. This is the latest in the one, and we have before that
Sindh,
we have one from Sindh, and we have one from Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and of course now
we get
it's,
one from Balochistan.
yes, and the Balochistan one I hope is on its way.
I hope so. The OUP entirely, it's in the hands of OUP now.
Yeah. Okay. I think first of all I'd like to ask you, Dr. Koro, what made you think of this initiative? Why did you decide to do this?
It's a very personal thing because, I have had a little grandson who was living abroad. I mean, the parents were living in Switzerland, and he was born there, and they used to come here in the winter holidays. But he was growing up, and he had no idea where he was coming, apart from the fact that, it was Karachi home or whatever. So I thought, as he was growing up, he should be rooted somewhere. And that I thought, the best thing was, that he should really have an idea of where his mother came from, and what country
He belonged to.
And so on. So the best, and there was no other way. I mean, he couldn't be here for a whole year or several years. So the only way that I could think of was to write about the country that he belonged to or his mother belonged to, and to know about it so that he could form some kind of connection with it. That's why I first wrote about Sindh.
Yes.
And that's my inspiration and my reason for doing it. And then there was another grandson, so there are not two reasons. And then, of course, all these little children here who live here, but are not really, there's so little history being taught in our schools or being related to them. I thought it could come in useful for all the children who are here, and particularly those who live abroad. Actually.
Not only there is very little history, but this is history which has been not properly written, and there are lots of aberrations, as I would say. And I think this may have to do with the kind of world we live in, the kind of, I see the same kind of complaints that people have in India, that the history there has been falsified, and the focus is on Hinduism and belittling the work that has been done by those who have come into their country, and of course apart, if you look at the world history, you know that migrations are something natural. If a tribe lives in a country for 400 years, they can't continue to be called migrants. And so if they are part of that country, then the history that they make, what they do there, is all part of that history. And I'm glad that you've written it for your children, your grandchildren. But I think this also meets the need of a lot of similar children abroad, because now, as we know, that this whole world is a global village, and I don't think that there are many families who are whole and that everybody is there. So if they are not here, like you said, the children come for a little while, they go away, and they have no idea of the kind of glorious past that we have had, the glorious history that we have had in this continent, something that they can be proud of, instead of always, downgrading Pakistan and saying things which, are not always true. So I would say that
Yes.
is a very, very cogent kind of contribution.
That's right.
That you have made, not only for your children, but also for all Pakistani children who are living abroad. And I think some parents, not all, unfortunately, abroad too, you have two categories. Some people who want to dissociate themselves completely from their past and forget and become,
American.
more American than Americans. ये तो और बात है कि कौवा चला हंस की चाल और अपनी भी भूल गया. So they may not realize what they are losing out on by denying the rich culture and the rich history that that belongs to this continent. So would you like to tell us a little more about this book in particular, which is being launched just now?
Yes.
And then a little more about all the three,
Right.
and what exactly is in those
Yes.
books.
Well, I'm glad we are having a few little children for whom this book is meant. That's nice.
आगे आ जाएं, आगे आ जाएं.
Okay, I was just saying, yesterday Nadeem Aslam, the writer, said something really fantastic. He said that everybody has two parents,
Yes.
but history is the third parent. Because he says, okay, what I'm saying, I interpret that as
Yeah.
saying that, okay, you know your mother and father, you're here because of your mother and father. But you should know that history has also created you. I mean, that's the forces over the centuries and thousands of years that created man and then evolved him into whatever he is at present. So I think that I had very much that at the back of my mind when writing these books, because I'm also very aware that in Pakistan we have got a very sort of frog in a well kind of view, that we only see ourselves in a particular framework with a particular mindset, and that is really a denial of who we are. So I set out to emphasize to the children that they belong to thousands of years of history.
Show it to the children especially.
And that's why I started where we have, 5,000 years, the Indus Valley civilization. And also that it used to be said that the people in the Indus Valley civilization came from Mesopotamia or the north somewhere, Central Asia. But in fact, as it turns out, we have nearby in Balochistan, from where they traveled to the Indus River, settlements of people who have domesticated animals, who first invented these earthenware pots and learned to bake them. Absolutely, the beginning of civilization is to be found in this country.
I just wanted to ask these children, this is a book launch. Book launch means that this book has just been printed, and it's been printed specially for children like you. And these are books which are, it says, a children's history of Sindh, children's history of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and now the latest book that's come out is the history of children's history for Punjab. So this is a book launch, and these books are telling you in your very easy language, in a kind of story. You like stories? So this is like a story, like you are with your uncle, and your uncle takes you to a place and tells you about it. That's much more interesting than reading a boring book about it, isn't it? Yeah, of course, I know. So then these books are such that there are very nice pictures here which show the different kinds of things that are being said about it. It gives you, for instance, if it talks about the seals in Harappa, then those seals are given, and so you are able to see as much as read and enjoy the story. And it's girls like you whose Chacha took them to different places, and so they began to...
In the Punjab?
Yes, this is in Punjab that the Chacha took them. What happened in Sindh?
In Sindh, it's my story. I was in the village.
Why don't you tell about that?
Yes, the first book, which is not being actually launched today, is about Sindh, and which is where all of you live. And this is, but I was brought up in a village. You know, I was born and brought up in a village. So I've described my life in the village, which is very near Mohenjo-daro, you know, the 5,000-year civilization.
You know Mohenjo-daro? Heard of the name Mohenjo-daro? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
So my village is only a few miles away from there, and that's where I was living. So we used to live there, and in a very basic style. You've seen charpais. You know what a charpai is. Okay, we used to sleep on charpais outside, under the open sky. We used to play with little mud toys, clay toys.
Do you ever play with mud toys? Yes. Huh? No.
No, plastic.
Yeah, right. So these were real mud toys.
Mud toys, like in Mohenjo-daro they had mud toys, and we used to, and I was small, I used to play with those sort of toys. And I learned to write on a takhti.
Takhti. Do you know takhti? Have you ever seen takhti? Have you written on takhti?
Takhti is something that you cover with, first you clear and cover with...
it's a kind of clay that you paint on it, and it was great fun painting
Yes,
that.
And then you write with a reed pen, with which you put in... They won't even understand that unless we demonstrate that.
Yes,
actually.
I think we should do that.
This is saying we can write with a feather.
Yes, that sort of...
Yes, yes,
right.
yes.
That
yes.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yes. So,
Okay, please.
So I've been through all that, and then went to a school and did takhti writing, and I used to learn to count on kodis, which are little like shells.
They're shells, coddies.
Shells.
You know.
1, 2, 3 sort of thing on shells. So I had a really basic 5,000-year-old education as a child. And then, of course, I found myself in Karachi and in all these schools where you write with pens and sort of, I count on blackboards and things like that. And then I went abroad, and that was a completely different life. So the Sindh book is my life in the village, and then I describe the history of Sindh. How we first had Aryans who came here, and they found this river flowing through this province, and they looked at the river, and it was so impressive, and it was so big that they had never seen a river as big as that, and they call it the sea, Sindhu, which is a river without borders.
Yes, Sindhu River, that is near Hyderabad.
That then gave the name to the land also. So that is the book about Sindh. But after I had written that book...
And that book is written for children of your age group who were not living here in Pakistan. And so Auntie Amida Kuru thought that it would be good to write about the details of the story of Sindh, so that the children could read it and remember it. So you do have some information, but here you will have lots of very nicely illustrated story kind of thing, which would be interesting for you to look at.
Now it's translated into Urdu and Sindhi also.
Yes.
So
But they are speaking.
Anyway, so after I'd done that, then I said, okay, if my grandchildren can read about Sindh, but they'll want to know where is Sindh, because, it's very difficult when you're sitting in America or England or somewhere to really identify the place, where is Sindh. So then therefore they ought to get an idea of the rest of Pakistan also. So then I wrote, the next book I wrote was actually on the Punjab, but it's been published later.
Yeah.
On Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which is the latest name of the province. NWFP, quite right.
Very good.
Very good.
Smart children. Yeah.
So that's what, now it's called Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So I know it's a big mouthful, I hope they'll simplify it.
See?
And that's a picture of the Qissa Khani Bazaar, which is the most famous and most ancient bazaar, I think, in the whole of Pakistan. I don't think Lahore's got an older bazaar than that.
I mean, all cities have old bazaars. We have Khajur Bazaar here in Karachi.
But that's a couple of hundred years old.
I know. But Qissa Khani Bazaar is one of the oldest bazaars.
So it's thousands of years old.
No. No.
Not as old as that.
That's more. Khajur Bazaar, Kharadar, you know, and beyond that, you know, where you have little gates.
Yes, Mithadar and Kharadar.
Mithadar and Kharadar. Yeah. Those are the old markets. They're not this one. Ori Bazaar is not as old.
What about the Khori Bazaar?
Those are, but Karachi is, as a town, as a city, is only about 300 years old. And it's not, I mean, Peshawar and the Qissa Khani Bazaar is several thousand years old.
And Punjab also.
Punjab also, Lahore is old, but it is dated. I mean, we know when it was founded, as you know, and the book tells you, the Punjab book, that Lahore was founded by you heard of Ram and Sita? No. Okay,
there was a Ram and there was a Sita.
And the Lahore was founded by the son of Ram, who's now a Hindu god. His son was called Lahore, I think.
Yeah.
And Lahore's fort was founded by him. Later on, it was again Mahmud of Ghazni. I don't know if you've heard of him. He was a ruler of Afghanistan, who came here, and he then made that his capital, Lahore. He conquered the Punjab and he made Lahore his capital. So, in fact, Lahore is probably most ancient city is Peshawar, I think, and Lahore is probably the second oldest.
Did you know that? That Peshawar is one of the oldest cities?
Date,
yes.
I don't know. Saz, can you help us here? When can you date the life of Ram? I mean, do you know when it could be?
I'm so sorry. I wish I knew. And when you said that Lahore is named after his son, I was thinking you know the name of his son. And,
I'll give you the name of the son.
Two sons. One founded Kasur, the city of Kasur, and one founded the city of Lahore.
Yes, I'll just tell you because I'm reading about.
Love and Kush.
Yes. Right. Love and Kush. Yes.
So, anyway, so that is the foundation of Lahore, and that the book, of course, Punjab is about the story of Lahore and of other places.
Yeah.
So
you have.
I traced the history. That's what I wanted you children to know. That you're not just in Pakistan, just in Karachi, but you have a very long and a very important history.
Yeah, we could talk about where they began and what happened and how you.
Yes, well, I remember this by heart.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so you start on that, and so you can say that your ancestors were Aryans, your ancestors were Huns, that your ancestors were
the people who lived in this,
who came,
not necessarily your grandfather.
Even Genghis Khan, you know, the great warrior Genghis Khan. You heard of Genghis Khan?
Yes.
Okay, he also came through. He didn't come to the Punjab, but he came through, and as far as Attock.
Yes.
As far as Attock.
Yes.
Chasing one of the rulers of Afghanistan, and who had, the only time he was defeated, Genghis Khan had he was the most famous and the most successful warrior in the whole world history. And he, but he,
also belonged to Pakistan.
no, he belonged to China, Mongolia.
Yeah.
But he came through here, the only time he was defeated in history was by an Afghan ruler, Jalaluddin Khwarizm Shah. And so then after he got defeated, he was very cross, and he said, I've got to get revenge. So he chased Jalaluddin, then of course realized he defeated Genghis Khan, and probably the thought overwhelmed him, so he rushed down into India, and Genghis Khan after him. And when they came to attack, which is a very, steep, the Indus goes through there, it's got very steep banks. So when they came there, Jalaluddin Khwarizm Shah said, now there's nowhere else to escape, what should I do? He was on his horse and he jumped down into the river with the horse, but he was able to swim across the river on the horse and get onto the other side and escape from Genghis Khan, who couldn't follow him across because he couldn't get his whole army to jump into the river and go across.
Yes.
So that is also a very famous incident. Actually, I don't know how famous it is. I came across it. It doesn't seem to have been written about much otherwise. But there are 2 or 3 things like that which you must remember and point out when something famous has to be talked about.
I've got the 2 names that we were looking for. One is Lava and the other is Kusha.
Yes.
And so both of them come to Punjab, where Lava founded the city of Lahore, and then Lohawar, and then it became Lahore. These are very interesting things to learn about your history, to know what it was and what it has become. So it's Lohawar. It was Lohawar, and now it is known as Lahore. And then Kusha. Then Kusha became the city of Kasur. Have you heard of Kasur? Kasur is a city in Punjab. Okay. And so you find such interesting stories, and as Dr. Khoro is saying, you have to realize that you are here just now, but that you have a long history of people who have done things in this city, in this country, which then are affecting.
And so you are actually a product of all these people, and it's this one, and you don't know that one of the strongest influences in this region was that of Buddhism. Do you know about Buddha?
Yes.
Okay. So he founded a religion called Buddhism, and for 1,000 years, for a whole 1,000 years, this whole country was Buddhist. And one of the most important areas of Buddhism was North Punjab, up to Taxila. Taxila is one of the very famous sites, archaeological sites, and that was
Have you heard of Taxila?
Yes.
that was the capital of the Buddhist rulers, particularly Ashoka. You heard about Ashoka. He was a king who became king of Buddhists after having fought many wars and killed a lot of people. Then he got disgusted that, I've killed so many people, I better change my life, and he became Buddhist. And then
So,
he
Buddhism teaches you
throughout the land, and Taxila was one of his capitals, and you may have heard, actually everybody says he comes from east of the subcontinent, from Patna and from Bihar.
Yeah, and one very important point about Taxila for you children is that it had the first university in this whole continent, in the whole of the subcontinent, and even
Probably
maybe
in the world.
Probably in the world, that it had a university which had little cloisters for scholars who would come there and meditate. So it was the first organized university that ever was born in this world. So you can be proud of the fact that Pakistan is on the land where the first university was made. And I think you all know about Mohenjo-daro?
Yes.
Yeah? So have you heard much about Harappa?
Yes.
Yeah? What do you know about Harappa? Harappa is like Mohenjo-daro. Do you know when it was discovered? It was discovered when they were making a railway line. This is from the book. I'm reading it, I'm telling you from here so that you can also be motivated to take the book and read it. That they were digging the railway line and they found some bricks, and then they found finally that it was the ruins of another city like Mohenjo-daro. Mohenjo-daro is much publicized. We don't know that much about Harappa, but Harappa is in
Harappa was the
Punjab.
one city that was found first.
Yes, yes.
That
Can
was
you tell a
found
little
first.
about Harappa
And
then?
yes, when the British were building railways. As you know, the railways in this country were built by the British. So when they were planning and laying down the lines, they wanted bricks to make the ground for putting on the rails, and the contractors were told to find these bricks. And of course, as you know, contractors always have shortcuts. They don't really want to do all the work. And so they were looking around and they found these bricks, a lot of very well-made bricks. And so they dug those up and brought them to make the railways. But then certainly some archaeologists probably looked at them and decided that these were really worth looking at and digging. And then they found the city of Harappa. They couldn't place it, they didn't know what it was about. There were seals, there were some toys, things like that. But
Toys made of mud.
made
Yes,
of mud,
these were
yes.
talisman.
Baked mud. So then, but after a few years, archaeologists came to Sindh, where there are very many, what we call in Sindhi daras, which is mounds of earth.
Big
And
mounds there.
So they dug those, and inside they found.
Excuse me, you can't just get up and go like this. It's very, very rude to do that. Huh? Your teacher is calling you or what? Teacher is calling you. I think the teacher should know that we should not move from in between like this. Another 10 minutes and we'll be finishing, and then you can go. Madam is telling you something. Okay?
Okay, more. Anyway, so the archaeologists came and they dug up these mounds, and inside they found these whole cities where people used to live. They used to have, straight streets like New York has now. So it is called New York on the Indus, and all the houses had bathrooms, which in the old days were unknown. Bathrooms, drainage, all that sort of thing. So it was an extremely important find for the whole of subcontinent, for India and Pakistan, that there could be such a civilization 5,000 years old in this area. Later on, they found other cities. They connected Harappa with it, and also cities in India and Gujarat, which are similar at the same time. You had a huge civilization which really connected the whole from Kashmir down to Gujarat or even further. So there was this huge civilization 5,000 years ago in this country. So somewhere in you there are some genes perhaps that come from 5,000 years ago, Mohenjo-daro. And so that's why it's very important for you to know what was here in this country before you, how did it develop, what happened.
Yeah. You can also learn a little more about the Muslims that finally came here, and they were Sufis, and so there are lots of very beautiful mausoleums and mazars which have been made by the Muslims there, which are known for their architecture as well as their beauty. And there are lovely stories about all of these things, because this is a book which is talking about how children themselves discover these things with their elders.
And one of the kings who was really fond of pictures and curious
Babur,
about life
was it?
was Jahangir, Emperor Jahangir.
Oh, it was
A
Jahangir.
Mughal emperor.
Okay.
And he of the
He was a
first time.
painter. He was also a painter.
Not a painter, writer. He
Right.
wrote his memoirs.
Yes, but he painted
He
this.
was fond of painting and
Yes.
he had a lot of painters. And so he, for the first time in the whole of subcontinent, somebody brought the bird turkey. You know what a turkey is?
Yes.
He saw this turkey for the first time, which had been brought to India in his time. And because the people knew that he was very fond of birds and animals. And so he got his artist to paint a picture of the turkey. So one of the oldest and one of the most beautiful pictures ever painted of a turkey, at least, is the one that Jahangir had done. So things like that, you see, you have to know about. Or you should know about anyhow. And then, of course, he did had lots of other paintings. You've heard of miniature paintings, which are very small paintings of things. So he encouraged a lot of miniature paintings, which are a part of the heritage of this country, as you know. And even now, in the Lahore College of Arts, I think it is, there are a lot of people who do miniature paintings. So you can get modern miniature paintings as well.
Would you like to say something about other people living here, such as the Sikhs, who were
Yes.
very prominent in Punjab and who lived
Yes, well, Pakistan is also the place where the Sikh religion came into being. It's, you know, that the founder of Sikhism was a Guru Nanak, who was a very holy man. And he was trying to cover the differences between Hindus and Muslims. He was trying to find some sort of way that these religions could come together. So he preached peace and, the unity of God, that there was one God for everybody, and that everyone should live in harmony and peacefulness, and he founded the Sikh religion. And for some time, Punjab was under the rule of the Sikhs, and the most famous Sikh ruler was Raja Ranjit Singh. The Sikh kingdom was just after the end of the Mughals. This is Guru Nanak, and that's Raja Ranjit Singh. So he was the ruler of the Punjab. He's the most famous Punjabi ruler of the Punjab. I think that was the only time that Punjab is independently
Ruled by-
and ruled by its own ruler.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I think the most important thing here that you learn is that the Sikhs, who are not so much in majority here, were people who wanted to create some kind of unity between Hindus and Muslims and create a peaceful region for all of us to live. And that actually is one of the important sort of goals that we should have, is peace for all of us. Whatever religion we belong to, we should have peace and tolerance for everybody else.
Okay. Abhi, are you listening?
Perhaps the children would like to ask.
Yes.
Would you like to ask something?
Would you like to ask any questions? Do you have any questions? Do you want to ask?
Which country do Jahangir Khan want to attack?
Pardon?
Genghis Khan.
Yes.
Genghis Khan wanted to conquer the whole world.
But which country did he belong to?
He
Where?
belonged to Mongolia, which is
Mongolia.
in the north of China.
He was a Mongol.
He's a Chinese warrior.
Yes, a sort of Chinese.
Mongolia is on the border.
Yes, it's China.
It's China. Technically, it's China.
And
but
his
Mongolia-
sons and grandsons ruled China.
Yeah.
Then he sent his armies and they conquered the whole of Central Asia. And then they came into Afghanistan and they came into India. And, you know, for a long time, for over 100 years, the Mongols, as they were called, his followers, they tried to conquer India. For a whole 100 years, their armies came into the Punjab and they tried, the rulers of this country were in Delhi. So they fought against the Mongols. And so successfully that they were able, this was the only country, the only subcontinent, where the Mongols were not able to conquer completely. As you know, they were defeated once. Genghis Khan was defeated in Afghanistan, and after that, they did not succeed in conquering. They did conquer the Punjab, though they didn't rule it, but they did come and defeat. But they didn't ever go beyond that.
What was the name of Genghis Khan's son?
Halaku Khan was one. Anybody else remember any other name? All the rule.
How many are sons are there?
I don't know how many sons he had, but his rule, he had 3 or 4 sons actually. And his empire was sort of divided, some of them into Europe, some of them in Central Asia, and others ruled the Arab world. You know that Baghdad, which used to be the most famous city of the world at that time, most beautiful and well civilized, was also conquered by the Mongols, who then destroyed it. Baghdad also had the most famous library of the time. And afterwards, after the Mongol attack, people wrote poems describing how the books of the library of Baghdad were found floating in the river of Tigris, the Tigris River.
Any other question? Anybody else in the audience who would want to ask or comment on anything?
I just want to know, Sindh must have come very easily to you, the writing of the Sindh.
That's right, yes.
How about Punjab and Pakhtunkhwa? How did you research for these 2 places?
Well, Punjab also. What I discovered, Shirin, and I wanted to say this, I'm glad you asked, is that what I discovered was, after reading a bit about Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the essential unity of the Indus Valley civilization. You read one and it's very similar to the next one. You know, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, although that is mountainous, and it's got Hindu Kush, the most terrifying mountain range in the world, but it's still a part of the same civilization. Indus is what is the life giver and the civilizing force of this whole area. So I found a sort of basic unity in this history, and that was very good to know.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of travel going on by the Sindh River, and not only in our region but beyond our borders, and that's why we have so much in common with other countries in this.
Yes, and also you see that there's a basic unity in the language. You go from one to the other, and it's the variation. You go from Sindhi into Saraiki, which is the language of the north, then into Punjabi, Lahori, this and that. And so they're all related. The only language that is probably descended from slightly different root is Pashto, which is, even Persian is more familiar. But Pashto somehow seems a little bit, I don't know what its roots are. I haven't worked on that yet. Yes. If anyone has any idea, they can tell us. Yes.
Are you writing more books? And we'd love to see more books about other parts.
Well, I've been asked to write one on Gilgit-Baltistan, which I have no idea about.
We want to see books about India as well.
India? Yeah, okay. If you ask me to write a book about a particular province, I'll do that. It's difficult to write a book about the whole of India. It's too diverse, too much.
Yeah.
I was happy to hear your reference to Buddhism in the history of the Punjab, particularly because I come from Nepal, and I find in the contemporary discourse in Pakistan, there is very little resonance of Buddhism, the Buddha, the Sakyamuni, and the other historical Buddhas, and Emperor Ashok, because it is certainly a part of the heritage of Pakistan.
Definitely.
And in fact, when you go to Bangladesh, which has very few sites and artifacts related to Buddhism, but there is a more of a resonance of Buddhism there than, I don't say Buddhism, but the Buddha as a historical personage, not as a religious personage. So I was very happy that a children's book on Punjab does highlight the Buddhist.
Definitely.
The children's book on Sindh and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is really got fantastic remains of Buddhism. You know, it still has the stupas and the
gorgeous.
I think there is a statue called Manikyal, which Manikyal is a stupa which is one of the original stupas of the Buddhistic world. But if you go there today on the Potahar Plateau, it's essentially a side stop. There is, whereas anywhere else, I think it would be highlighted as one of the original sites.
That's right. That's right. Pakistan's missing out on all this. But and I've mentioned in all these books, in Sindh particularly, that it was Buddhist for 1,000 years. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know how many. It's a climate which doesn't encourage remains. You know, everything just turns to dust. But
No, but Dr. Koro, there are lots of things
But
which are Ashoka's, writings, which you come by. If you go on the Silk Route, you will be able to see a lot. And I agree with you that the best part of this book is that it is a book which is dealt really with history as it has come by, instead of distorting it or putting it to any kind of focus as to we Muslims have this or that, because it's not like that. The world doesn't evolve in that manner, and so this warped way of saying things is not in this book. It's a very, very open, and it's a book that really takes you through the roots of roots that history has taken in this subcontinent. Yes.
Well, adding on to what Professor Zakia Sarwar just said, I just wanted to congratulate Dr. Hamida Kuro, and also to say that if these books were written by the curriculum wing in Islamabad, they would have a completely different flavor. And that is why I think these books are so important.
Yes.
And I think they should be made mandatory reading, at least for the private schools, if not for the government schools.
Poor government school children.
You can't change that. I mean, unless it comes from the government. So at least the private schools could benefit. And, instead of this warped history that we are presented for all these years we have been reading, these books will change all of that.
Yes.
actually, Romana, when I was in the ministry and the federal minister was General Ashraf Qazi, there was a real effort made to change the books.
Yes.
He had a broad mind, and he went through every book, at least in the, or most of school class, and revised those. Those were approved by the board, and they were on the verge of being introduced into schools when the government changed, and that was stopped.
Yes.
So that's very stupid of us, actually, that if the government changes, the whole policy sort of changes, and that's really cannot be understood why that happens.
Because the rulers that be are not interested in education as it should be, as simple as that. Because I think I know about this because, as you know, I was also involved in working on the textbooks. The textbooks, for instance, school books have changed a little, but the college books that are being taught, I don't know if any one of you know, but they have been there for the last 45 years and they have not changed. You know, we've gone through these books year after year, and it says, you know, during even the worst of dictatorship, we went through the book, Liaquat Ali Khan's speech, saying that if there is no democracy, that means Pakistan's main purpose is not there. And we've taught that in the class, but the dictatorship was there. So that is actually one of the unhappy, sad things about Pakistan. But I think there is a big silver lining, because people like Dr. Hamida Koro and many others are trying to take the initiative to bring in alternative things which can be available to children, to parents who are conscious of the fact that this heritage is to be proud of and that it should reach their children. So they have now at least an option to look at the books in a manner that would interest the children, and I think that's a very, 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 very commendable, and I know that it is a very arduous task that you have taken on yourself, but I would like to congratulate you on it also.
So I was saying, although you focused on these books for little children, I think it's also like a 101 lesson in history for us adults. Yes, so I found it very interesting and re-educated myself. It's like a shortcut 101.
Yes, well, actually,
Really interesting for
people
adult
prefer short books. They don't want.
No, but
It's the age
You're
of.
really into history, yes.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people who want to know about our history. But this has got pictures, and while reading to our grandchildren,
you also
we're
educate
educating
yourself.
us.
I think I endorse that fully, because and then we studied history as history in our classes long time ago. So this is very refreshing even for individuals like you and me to read this, because then you have, as you said, a snapshot off from the time that you began to where we are at this point. And so I think there's much more that is being done through these books. It's for children abroad, it's for people to know their heritage, and it's for people like us who read history, but seeing it in this kind of sequence makes more sense to us, and we know more about it, and we feel more proud than we did before. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Zakia. Thank you. Look for Balochistan and Gilgit-Baltistan. And India, of course.